just very briefly, to do a bit introduction, what we're trying to do in this first session is we're having a wide variety of speakers from science to policy to research in this what we call science policy interface. This is, as I say, the second of the series we are doing. This one is compared to the one we did in January on sustainable digitalization that some of you also attended. I would like to focus particularly how digitalization can enhance rural economies, agriculture, education, and overall community well-being. So actually, we're trying to cover a big field in only barely 2 hours. So bear with us, but I think it's worth the ride because we have contributions from the Joint Research Center about green and digital future of Europe. I'm very pleased to have Francesco Iadecola, former colleague from other ventures and now in DG Agri, who will discuss policy trends and digitalization in rural areas and agriculture. And also a fellow colleague from other research adventures, Eleni Tolli as well, will joining us later. And then we will have the second part of the meeting will cover after the introduction, there will be a discussion on the multi-actor approach. And we're also pleased to have Matteo Grossa, which is our boss, our coordinator in Smart Tira, a project on rural digital solutions from the Fondazione Bruno Kessler from Italy. And then we'll have a session, a bit of a question and answer session. So we have like a lot of contributions in this first half before the coffee break. So then, save your questions for that session we will have after Matteo speaks, and then we'll have the coffee break. After that, there will be an interactive session to break out rooms. So that's why please do not disconnect. There will be one about AKIS and another one facilitating for our Emil skills. And another one, as I was saying, from Maria Alonso Roldan from University of Cordoba. You will be automatically allocated to rooms based on your background. So please, that's why, please do not disconnect. And as I say, that's enough for me. I give the floor to the project manager from ADL for CODECS, Merveille Tabuhashi, who will just take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Serafin. So hello, everyone, and welcome to this CODECS Science Policy Interface meeting. So my name is Merveille Tabuhashi, and I'm the project manager of CODECS at ADL. So to start off today's session, we will welcome Gianluca Brunori, who will set the stage for our discussions today. So Gianluca is a full professor of food policy at the University of Pisa, and he's the coordinator of CODECS. He has over 30 years of experience in agricultural economics and in food policy, and he has been researching innovation in agriculture and in food policy and in rural areas for that long, among many other things. Gianluca, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Merveille. Thank you to all participants. My duty today is just to set the scene for the discussion. And as you know, the CODECS is mainly about, let's say, introducing and implementing the concept of sustainable digitalization in agriculture. So I will give a couple of, let's say, insights to set this scene. And I would like to start with what I call the agricultural digitalization utopia. Here you can see a word made of ecological agriculture, but mainly made of digital twins of agroecosystems. So digital twins are digital replication on reality. And with this digital replication, it is possible to simulate the functioning of the systems and to, let's say, intervene also remotely on agricultural systems. So this is let's say, what we call the utopia, because we know that there is a long way to get on this stage. And the first step to do this is what we call the connected farm. So a farm, as you can see, that is where sensors are distributed everywhere, and they collect a lot of data, a lot of information related to the functioning of the agricultural systems. And then we have this data that are transported, computed, elaborated into applications. And then there are, let's say, actuators that get the data and intervene in the physical world. And somebody here, the farmer, let's say, control the system and that everything goes well. So this is, again, a kind of utopia, but we have seen that there is some progress on it. But we have to understand how to achieve this goal, and especially what are the risks. So the first step we have to do is to understand digital solutions as socio-technical networks. This means that we have a lot of equipment, but also we have people, and especially this, let's say, equipment is combined differently in providing goods, but also in providing services. So there will be networks of people and instruments and affecting natural resources. So the uptake of digital solutions implies that, first of all the necessary components of the socio-technical ecosystem are in place, because if something is missing, the system doesn't work. Then we need that the solution is compatible with other components of the ecosystem. So this means that if there are components with different goals, the different tasks, different way of work, the system doesn't work. Then the solution is provided through a commercial contract or as a good or as a service, and this has a lot of economic implications. And then the business model that sells the good or the services is financially sustainable, which sometimes is not. So, given that, our next question is digitalization inherently transformative? We have already seen in another project, Desira, that this is not necessary. So we can have a digitalization having different types of impacts. And especially we see that the digitalization connects and disconnects, creating some impact, but also depleting some impacts, disenabling and enabling. So this means that when a digital solution intervene in a real situation, we have to check what are the costs and what are the benefits. And by the way, CODECS is focused on the cost and benefits, not only in terms of economic cost, but also in terms of social and environmental costs. So I would like to give today an example of these dilemmas related to digital solutions. So we can decide to apply digital solution to conventional farming. And in this case, we see that conventional farming has specific rules. For example, it is related to simplification, to the massive use of inputs, etc. So in conventional agriculture, digitalization is related to homogeneity. So, for example, to reduce the yield gap. So the sensor look at where is the need of a specific field on, for example, fertilizers, and then it apply to homogenize the fields. So in this case, digital technologies harness diversity to homogenize, and digital technologies encourage simplification because they tend to maximize the let's say the performance of conventional agriculture. Whereas agroecological agriculture, we start with a totally different set of rules, because in our case, performance is related to diversity. And so digital technologies in this case are, let's say, designed to harness diversity to diversify. So whereas conventional harness diversity to homogenize, digital technology harness diversity to diversify. So, and in this case, technologies encourage complexity rather than reducing complexity. So, depending on which agricultural paradigms we choose, the effects of digitalization will be very different from each other. So we are considering digitalization as a trend transforming agriculture. And we know that with the sustainable digitalization, we have to link this transformation of agriculture in digital sense, but to the ecological transformation and the logical transition. And this means that we need to look at connectivity infrastructures, but also human capital, data sharing and access rules, and also directionality of innovation policies. This means that innovation is not enough. We have to see what direction innovation should go. And of course, in this regard, digitalization will have to be, let's say, strongly directed and monitored. And with this, I would like to thank you.
Thank you very much, Gianluca. So next up, we will start our first session, which will focus on digital transformation of rural areas. And to start off, we'll hear from some perspectives from policy actors as well as some scientists. So we will start by welcoming Stefan Munk and Catherine Jensen from the Joint Research Center. They will provide some insights on the green and digital future, and more specifically on the twin transition. So Stefan is a policy analyst at the JRC, and he conducts some research on sustainability topics like green and digital twin transition, as well as green jobs, etc. And previously, he was working at DigiClimate, where he contributed to climate-related projects. And Catherine is a research and policy analyst at the JRC, and she has experience in building strategies for European policy making. And more specifically, she focuses on emerging issues and the way they can impact the future of Europe. So Catherine and Stefan, the floor is yours.
Yes, thanks a lot. And good morning also from our side. It's great to see Gianluca, because Gianluca has supported the study a lot. So it was a very well-fitting introduction to this topic. And I think we are really in line here as well. So Catherine and I will present findings from a foresight study that we have published at the EU Policy Lab recently on the topic of the green and digital twin transition. But before we dive into the details of the study, a few words on foresight and also on the EU Policy Lab. I hope you can see my presentation. So yeah, so foresight is really about thinking about the future in a structured way. We look at issues in a holistic manner, and we also try to link different issues and how they interrelate. We look at long-term futures, so 15 to 20 years ahead. In fact, the study on the twin transition has a time horizon up to 2050. Our processes are trying to incorporate many different perspectives. So we have, or we run participatory processes with a lot of different stakeholders from different areas. we do not try to predict the future in numbers, but we try to think about what drives the future. So it's a qualitative approach to think about the future. And basically all this tries to create a safe space to, in our case, mostly policymakers, to discuss questions that are otherwise very difficult to discuss in a public administration. So the Policy Lab here has a unique position. We have 3 teams: behavioral insights, design, and foresight, and we use methods and approaches from these 3 areas to support policymakers. And here, because we are a lab, we can actually experiment with new approaches, meaning we can try out new ways to design policies, and we can also then say, okay, maybe one of these approaches did not work, we try something different. This is also something that is not very common at the European Commission. The study we present today is part of a series which we call strategic foresight reports. And here, since 2021, we actually have a tandem publication where colleagues from the Secretariat General publish a communication, and we at the Joint Research Center provide a science of policy report, which basically feeds into this communication and provides a scientific background. And today we will present the science of policy report we published in 2022 on the green and digital twin transition.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Stefan. So how did we do this in this case? So to prepare this study on the green and digital transition and what it could look like towards 2050, we selected 5 sectors and developed, together with a host of different experts, innovation timelines for green technologies and digital technologies that could help those sectors to become more efficient and greener by 2050. We also conducted a trends analysis of each of those sectors to look at other trends that were ongoing, for instance, shifts towards resilience in different sectors. And we looked at contextual factors, so factors that are not related to innovation or technology. And from all this, we also did a goal-oriented backcasting. So we took the European Green Deal as sort of a key target, as well as the Digital Decade Compass, which is another key EU policy, and then looked backwards. If we imagined those targets, what would we need to do from today to reach them? So all in all, we had a team of experts that we worked with closely. We also conducted stakeholder dialogues with civil society and industry representatives. And in total, we had over 200 participants in this participatory study, to help us look at what the twin transition could look like towards 2050. So this was the focus of the study. How can the green and digital transitions reinforce each other? And that's what we talk about when we talk about the twin transition, because these are transitions that are key to Europe's competitiveness and prosperity when we look towards the future. And they're running at sort of a very parallel timeline, but the question is, do they reinforce each other? Can they be harnessed to work in the same direction, or do they sometimes create tension points? So this is what we looked at for the 5 most polluting sectors in Europe. So that's agriculture, buildings and construction, energy-intensive industries, and mobility and transport. And for today, of course, we'll focus on what we did for the agricultural study. And just a short note on the transitions. So we talk about the green transition, which is sort of very steered by policy because we have a lot of targets and we're trying to mobilize people to moving in the same direction, whereas the digital transition is slightly different. Those tools are becoming pervasive in our daily lives, whether we take action or not. So the digital transition is really about making sure that we use those tools to the benefit of society and to help us achieve targets that we have and things we want to achieve in the future. As I mentioned before, we also looked at contextual factors, which we found are key to actual success, because it's not only the creation of a technology or even the access to technologies that determine whether a solution will actually be taken up by by businesses, by citizens. And so you need to consider things like contextual factors. We've broken them down into societal factors, political factors, and economic factors. So societal factors could, for instance, be the trust that, in this case, for instance, the farmer might have towards a specific digital solution, whether it would be acceptable for them to integrate it if they trust what happens to their data. Political factors are, of course, making sure that there's an enabling policy framework, that it's policy coherent. And then there's also global and geopolitical dimensions in terms of access to the resources that we need to pursue a green transition. And there's economic factors that need to be considered, whether there's a business case, the sunk costs that a business might have in established infrastructure. And all these are things that are key to determining whether a green digital solution actually gets taken up and implemented in real life.
So before we talk now about the twin transition in the agriculture sector, it's important to know what kind of changes are happening right now in the sector. So in this case, we know that climate change has ever-increasing impacts, for example, through more droughts or more heavy rain events. So resilience is becoming more important in the agriculture sector. We also see that there's a growing world population, so we have to expect that there will be a growth in food demand. And we see that consumer choices change. One aspect of this is that, for example, consumers are now looking more for organically grown food. And the second one is that there's an increased health consciousness. So, for example, we see that actually the demand for certain products like meat products or alcoholic beverages is decreasing. How can digital technologies now support the green transition in the agriculture sector? So it's quite difficult to actually think about specific digital technologies up to 2050 because it's a highly dynamic field, and it will be impossible to predict what exact technology will be developed up to 2050. But what we can say about it's fairly constant is functions that are provided by digital technologies. And here we identified 5 key functions that are relevant for the twin transition. The first one is monitoring and tracking. That can be used, for example, to monitor biodiversity in a certain area, make sure that biodiversity stays high so that agricultural land remains productive in the long term. The second function is simulation and forecasting. Gianluca has already mentioned digital twins, which can be used to forecast weather changes also on the local level and also simulate what kind of impact such a weather change has on a certain farm. The third function is virtualization, which can be used, for example, for virtual fencing, to direct cattle into areas where there is a lot of weeds and let them graze there. The fourth function, system management, is basically to optimize complex systems. In the agriculture sector, we can use it to decrease fertilizer use while keeping productivity high. And the fifth function is information and communication. Also, Gianluca mentioned the connected farm, so having sensors that report in real time about the soil health or, for example, humidity in soils.
Yeah, and so what we did in our study to come to sort of recommendations based on the foreseen twin transition in these different sectors is that we assessed 10 case studies, so specific digital green solutions. For this case of agriculture, it's the digital environmental monitoring systems and smart sustainable farming. And then we looked at what this solution offered and what kind of barriers we would face in trying to implement this solution. And then from an analysis across these 10 case studies, we're able to derive key requirements. So these are the key requirements that we found for successful twin transitions. We've broken them down into steep categories: social, technological, environmental, economic, and political. And for instance, you have in the social dimension, you have a need to ensure just transitions. So making sure that the impact of the move towards more sustainable practices doesn't unfairly burden some citizens or some sectors of the economy more than others. This is, of course, very relevant. We've all seen the farmers on the streets recently, so that's one of those. The key requirements is making sure that the transitions are fair and that there's societal commitment on the need to change. Many of these conversations we have about becoming greener also involve, as Gianluca also mentioned, there's options to change fundamentally the way that you do things. So not only tweak certain practices, but really have a more transformative change. And that's, of course, something that requires a lot of commitment from society. You also have, excuse me, you also have technological key requirements, such as implementing an innovation infrastructure, ensuring that there's a reliable and coherent technology ecosystem, ensuring that solutions are interoperable, that you don't have things that become obsolete unnecessarily quickly. On the environmental side, we talked a lot about avoiding what's called rebound effects. So where certain optimization based on a digital technology, for example, leads to a higher consumption in another area, so that the overall environmental footprint isn't actually lowered by the intervention. And of course, reducing the environmental footprint of digital technologies themselves, the amount of data and energy that they're required for them to work, for example. Economic key requirements involve creating, ensuring a diversity of market players. This is particularly true for the digital sector, so making sure that we have different options available for people trying to become more digital in their practices, that it's not necessarily global giants dominating the market. And of course, we have the question of skills, both the skills to use the digital tools available and the skills needed in businesses or for farmers to be able to implement solutions. And finally, political key requirements include implementing adequate standards. This is also key to ensuring the interoperability of digital and green solutions. And of course, channeling investments into green digital solutions moving forward to allow us to continue innovating and especially to also help starting businesses overcome the innovation valley of death and actually be able to scale up and reach the market. So with that, I invite you very warmly to find more details in our reports, and I very much hope that we help to set the stage on what we mean when we talk about a green and digital future in the context of European policy. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both of you. So now we will welcome Francesco Iadecola from DG Green, who will present some initiatives that are needed for the implementation of digital tools in rural areas and in agriculture. So Francesco is an expert in agricultural policy, rural development, and research and innovation in the agricultural sector. He at DG Agri, he focuses on research and innovation strategy within the context of Horizon Europe and policy initiatives. Francesco, go ahead.
Yes, hello. Thanks a lot, Merve, for the introduction, and good morning, everyone. First of all, I want to thank you all, both the organizer and the participants, to be here today, since one of the purposes of this meeting is exactly to exchange on such interesting topic. And I will share now my screen, and also I want to link a bit my presentation to what Professor Brunori and my colleagues from the JRC just said, meaning that indeed, when we look at the policy perspective, I don't know if you can see now my screen correctly. I hope so. that indeed one of the role
No,
of
not yet.
policy.
Francesco?
Not yet.
Now we can see it. Perfect.
You can
Thank
see it? Okay, fantastic. Now, what I wanted to say that is very interesting, what was just mentioned about also the role of policy, not only to channel the investments in the direction of digitalization of agriculture and rural areas, but also to guide a bit the direction. And I believe that these kind of studies on foresight helps a lot also to inform the policy-making process, giving insights into what how digitalization will look like in a few years, applied to agriculture, rural areas, but also to the wider context. As was just said, my name is Francesco Iadecola. Today I will talk about the policy trends with a specific focus in research and innovation for digitalization in rural areas and agriculture. I am part of the unit F2 that co-manages Cluster 6 of Horizon Europe that has a focus on food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture, and environment, and works also on specific initiatives like the Mission Soil Secretariat, and also builds synergies with the CAP policy and the policy tools within the CAP, including the EIP Agri that we will briefly mention in the presentation. So I will start really from the general landscape when we talk about projects that are part of Horizon Europe, but also funded through other programs. The expectation is to contribute to really broad and overarching policy ambitions, ranging from environmental and climate ambitions, but also in this specific case, when we talk about digital transformation, about indeed the digitalization of the economy in different sectors. And then also it is important that projects keep in mind these ambitions throughout the implementation of the project, because directly contribute to the achievement of these ambitions. Here we have listed also the better regulation, with the better regulation agenda for a more informed policy making, but also we can mention a vibrant innovation ecosystem, a more resilient and competitive agricultural sector, and then vibrant rural areas. To support these policy ambitions, there are several several strategies and policy initiatives in place. Here we mentioned the European Green Deal and the related Farm to Fork strategy, the CFP, the Organic Action Plan. So we can mention several policy initiatives. There are others also related more to the digital aspects, like the Digital Decade Policy Program. So this to say that all these ambitions are supported by specific initiatives that set objectives and targets that guide the transition towards, for instance, a more green and digitalized economy. We talked before about contextual factors, and we talk also about key requirements. My colleagues from the GRC, as I just mentioned, one of the key requirements is also to have policy coherence, and the coherence is at policy level, but also at program level. As you can see here, I listed some of the most relevant EU programs when it comes to digitalization for agriculture and rural areas. And I tried to represent visually a bit how also these different programs interact. So when we talk about digitalization and data, the topic is so horizontal that, of course, we need to talk also about skills. We need to talk about broadband, so passive infrastructure that support connectivity, and also, yeah, the capacity of businesses to follow this trend of digitalization. I spent a bit more time, let's say, and content on these three first programs. That is Horizon Europe, that has dedicated calls for the digitalization of agricultural rural areas. And we can also mention the partnership agriculture of data that support, let's say, this trend of the digitalization. As you can see, Horizon Europe work in synergy with other EU programs. One of them is the Digital Europe program that goes more in the direction of the deployment of these technologies. And we can see how, you see, from cluster 4 to cluster 6 and then through Digital Europe program, these instruments accompany not only the research, but really accompany the full process that brings to the deployment and uptake of these technologies. Under Digital Europe program as well, we have very important initiatives like the Common European Agricultural Data Space that creates really a space where data can be shared and used from different stakeholders in a safe environment. European Digital Innovation Hubs and also testing and experimentation facilities for artificial intelligence, plus dedicated calls also to advance in digital skills. Another very important policy relevant for agriculture and digitalization is the CAP, of course, the Common Agricultural Policy, that through specific tools and measures also support the digitalization of the sector. And there is a specific objective, the cross-cutting objective of the CAP, that is strictly focusing on knowledge innovation, but also digitalization. So I wanted to give you this overview because, of course, it's not always easy to connect the dots since the topic of digitalization, as I said, is really horizontal and goes well beyond agriculture. Focusing a bit on what is being done under Horizon Europe and also the next step. As I said before, the cluster 6 focuses on research and innovation in food, agriculture, rural development, and bioeconomy through dedicated calls and topics. Here I selected, let's say, a list of topics to show you that really we, through the implementation of these projects, we aim at achieving different objectives. You see it ranges also from technologies like the use of drones in forestry, in rural areas, for example, to transport goods, but also for spraying on crops. Then the use of blockchain in the supply chain. And this is the case, for instance, of Trusty Food that you can see on the right, assessing the impact of digital technologies in agriculture. So like a project like CODECS, Quantifarm, digital applied to livestock, but also innovation when it comes to connectivity solutions. Imagine in remote areas where there are problems of connectivity, and without connectivity, many of the technologies would simply not work or not work properly. So this is to show that there is a whole set of policy, but also a whole set of projects that try to work on these contextual factors, key requirements, and all these enabling factors for digitalizing the sector. When it comes to smart solutions for rural areas, also there are dedicated topics. We will have the pleasure today to listen to the presentation of one of the projects under this call on smart rural communities, that is Smartira. To say that under Horizon Europe, there are indeed projects that work, for instance, on the use of Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, to improve healthcare access in rural areas, for instance, or online platforms for e-learning, e-government. So this is just to give you an overview. At the moment, we recently published the strategic plan of Horizon Europe for the period 25-27 that I really invite you to have a look to, that sets the key strategic also the ambitions, let's say, of the program for this period. And I also wanted to mention that yesterday a stakeholder feedback consultation has been launched on the expected orientation and impacts of the work program 2025. So it's something really to look at. And indeed, now the work, there is a lot of work that is being done to define what will be the topics that will be covered, let's say, for the next period. So talking about the role of research and innovation and of digitalization for rural areas and agriculture, of course, here I mentioned just a few elements, but the list is much longer. If we focus on the role of research and innovation, now that we talk about, for instance, the challenges related to trust in data sharing, challenges related to understanding what is the impact of these technologies on the environment, for instance, or even on the well-being of farmers, challenges related to digital divide. So there is a lot that research and innovation can do, making these solutions more accessible. So here we talk about cost effectiveness, but also improving the capacity to assess the performance of these solutions, and then also understand how trust can be built so that enough data is shared so that we can fully exploit the potential of these data-based digital solutions. When it comes to data and digital technologies, they have really a big potential in supporting farmers' decisions to analyze a complex amount of data, allowing, for instance, to optimize the use of inputs that can be fertilizer and can be water, etc. The automatization of tasks. Here we think also about the use of robots, but also AI, for instance, and potentially in improving traceability and transparency. And on the other hand, at the same time, when we think also about the area where farmers are operating and the broader landscape of rural areas, also in this context, digital solution can provide opportunities for digital services like e-health, telemedicine, online banking, e-government, we also mentioned before, can support the decision making, providing more accurate data, but also solutions, for instance, for the visualization of this data. And in general, access to information and knowledge exchange. One important aspect, and I'm sure that throughout the webinar today, we will further reflect on it, is the importance, yes, of the ideas, but also on the use of these ideas, because we see technology development is very fast, and then is not always accompanied by a mainstream adoption of the new solutions. So it's very important that what is researched then reach also the end user, and to allow this let's say this adoption, we believe that it's very important that whoever is involved in this process of R&I, of research and innovation, needs to be involved in the research of these solutions directly, and that also the results of this innovation are shared across different stakeholders, and that co-creation is really encouraged. That is why, through the multi-actor approach, practitioners and end users, imagine farmers, for instance, or foresters, depending on who will be the end users, are put at the center of this research innovation activity. So we don't only do research and innovation for farmers, but really also with farmers, putting the end user at the center of the activities. So this is an example of an inspiring example of projects that applies this multi-actor approach. This is an Horizon 2020 project, for instance, that aims at developing several interoperable smart farming IoT-based platforms built around 20 pilots. So here also the importance of the pilots of living labs in involving several actors to enable these technologies to be co-created and also uptaken. So this to say that in general, all the ecosystem around the creation of new technologies is very important. So in addition to the multi-actor approach, that we fully support, it is also key to strengthen these ACIs. The ACIs means the organization and the interaction of people and institutions who produce and use knowledge and innovation for agriculture and interrelated fields. I want to stress this because we often talk about the innovation ecosystem, so all the network of actors that are around the innovation. And I believe that this concept is very important, let's say, through the development of new technologies, but also then for all the exchange across different relevant actors. So this is the ACIs. We mean farmers, forester, advisors, researchers, media, or different organizations, university, academia. So it's really broad. And we need that because by bringing these actors together, of course, we create new knowledge and we assure that this knowledge is shared. As I was mentioning before, the CFP and Horizon Europe also work in synergy. They work in a synergy, even if, let's say, a different scale sometimes, but they both contribute to creating a new knowledge and sharing a new knowledge. This is the case of the European Innovation Partnership for Agriculture and Sustainability, EIP Agri, that indeed make sure that there is the creation of new innovation, for instance, through its operational groups. And that also advice is provided to farmers. Here we have an example of a project that is these digital farm projects. I left the QR code so you can, for instance, look a bit more into this. It's a project that demonstrates and validates the benefits of digital farming to farmers, for instance. And then on the other side, we have Horizon programs with multi-actor projects, thematic network, advisory network. And you see how there are interaction between the two. For instance, there may be research needs that are, let's say, emerging from the operational groups that then are brought into wider projects in Horizon Europe. But then also the exchange, the knowledge exchange between the two programs is also very strong. And also there is a big exchange on what ideas to test through these programs. This is my last slide. This is really to underline the importance of events like the webinar we are attending today, and in general of the role of different actors in the research field, but not only, also actors that are part of businesses in the value chain, public administration, farmers. All these actors are very important for the policy making process, because they really, the information that we gather through projects, through studies, and through direct interaction with stakeholders in these webinars or through stakeholder consultation, feed into the policy cycle, feed, for instance, through in the programming phase, or when we are assessing what are the needs and which policy should try really to channel investments, but also in terms of regulatory framework. So I believe that we should always keep in mind that whatever is produced by in terms of information by all these actors, it's extremely valuable for the policy making. And with this, I have concluded, and I thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much, Francesco. So now that we have quite a good overview of the EU landscape and perspective, we'll now hear from a scientist, so Eleni Toli. So Eleni is a research associate at the Athena Research Center, and she has been involved in the scientific and technical coordination of several EU-funded projects related to open science, open data, as well as digital social innovation. So Eleni, the floor is yours.
Hello. Very happy to be here. Many familiar faces and many people with whom we have worked great in the past years, and very happy to see them again. And so I will share my screen. Is it okay? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Just give me a second to tell my colleagues here that, okay, they should not talk so loud. Okay. So again, very happy to be here, and actually listening to the previous presentations, they have been not only very informative, extremely informative actually, but I was also very happy to hear several aspects that I also have included in my presentation, several keywords, and I believe they fit well with what I want to present today. So this is a brief outline of my presentation, a few aspects about how we can define rural, then a few things about the systemic approach, which is a way to address complex things, and then sustainability and digital transformation, and finally, a few things about the twin skills that are needed for this twin transition. So European rural regions, Europe is proud for its rural regions, I could say. They have a huge diversity, both in landscapes, but also cultural and economical uses. And many people in Europe still live in rural areas. So almost 30% of the European population, and they cover actually almost 80% of the geographical territory. So this means that they are very central to any policies that need to be implemented and need to be successful, considering the climate change and any challenges we face for the implementation of policies that will lead to this successful 2030 agenda. Rural areas in Europe are not any longer what they used to be, at least what the previous generation maybe had in mind. They are not static. They are not any longer only agricultural centered. They have the place-based transformation take place. They have several economic activities that combine culture, environmental activities, economic activities, and even research activities. So it's it's a place with increased complexity, and so are also the challenges they face, multiple and complex challenges at various levels. It is not, I have on purpose decided to focus on these three main categories, because these three main categories are also the ones that I would like to analyze further in my presentation. So, trying to define what rural means, we see in this definition three keywords, to my opinion. We talk about systems, and we talk about mosaic of land uses and various types of intervention. Only these three words already tell us that we have to deal with complex things, with things that do not, where a one solution or a one way to approach things will not be, cannot be enough. And for this reason, at least in our team, what we do, what we adopt as approach is to try to tackle all this through the systems definition. So by considering all the rural and relations as part of a structure that has an apparent purpose, this is a system where the elements of the system are interconnected, and this interconnection becomes sometimes even more important than the elements itself. So, and because of this interconnection, they give new structures, and these new structures can function as a new system as a whole. If we see, for example, this systemic approach in applying this to the SDGs, this is a field where we can clearly understand that this systemic approach, this systemic representation, allows us to understand the deeper relation between the single goals and actually addressing more successful and in a better way, not only the single goals, but the whole system of SDGs as a whole. So the systemic approach is one method. If you want to go back to the definition of rural as a social and ecological system and the mosaic of land uses, then we can see that it is the systemic approach that allows us to see the underlying patterns, which allows us also to place the problems in a broader context, and also helps us to make the necessary interventions in these complex environments. It does not reduce the existing complexity. This is not its purpose, but what it makes, this systemic approach, is to help us to embrace this complexity, to understand it better, and work towards a healthier and more balanced system. In this case, towards a healthier and more balanced interventions and understanding of the rural, of the relations in rural Europe. Now, moving to what I also mentioned as the three main challenges, this is something we very much analyzed and used in the Desira project, as already Gianluca mentioned. So this socio-cyber-physical systems approach, and you see these three domains, they all together present our interconnected reality, and the system innovation, the systems approach, actually tries to analyze and understand the internal organizations or the internal aspects in each one of these cycles, but also the relation of each cycle with the others. And so with this view, if we adopt this systemic view, studying, for example, digital transition in rural Europe, we should not see this as a standalone phenomenon, but study it as a whole, and with the logic of the circular relationships with other systems and with other cycles, rather than trying to see this through a linear causality, which is again something that was linked to the technical deterministic approach some years ago, but in today's reality, this is something that for sure cannot help us to address the major challenges. Again, most of them are related to the climate crisis. Next to each cycle, I added some what I consider as the most important aspect that needs to be addressed. And this is what I will try to do in the next. First of all, sustainability has been already mentioned. Gianluca said in the beginning that CODECS is about implementing sustainable digital development in agriculture, and sustainability is an extremely important aspect which allows us, what do we mean by sustainability? Sustainability is the way of doing business, of doing things actually, without impacting negatively the environment or the community or the society. Already this definition includes different other subsystems that are included in this broader socio part of the system I showed you previously. Then we have the digital part, and it's maybe useful also to distinguish between digital transition and digital transformation. Sometimes we use this in the same way, but actually digital transformation is a holistic approach that does not only refers to digitizing or automatizing processes, but refers to the integral use of digital technologies in all aspects of our life and in all aspects of doing business or, again, doing things. In the Desira project, we had, to my opinion, a great approach. It was a project about digital aspects in rural Europe. And there, although we focused on digital technologies and digital game-changing technologies, our approach was that we don't want to use the technology as an end itself, but we want to see what is the technology, with the technology as a means to an end, which means that analyzing a concrete condition, we may come to the conclusion that there is no technology that will help us to solve the concrete problem that this community is facing. This was also an option that we included in our analysis. And for achieving this sustainable digital transformation, combining digital and sustainable, there are few things that do really matter. Without any doubt, digital tools support modern societies. They can reinforce the social fabric and increase knowledge and awareness. And in contrary to what the belief was some years ago, it is something that can be very socially inclusive. But for achieving this, the community participation and the co-creation are key for accepting any digital solution and for including, and we should mentor user-centric ideas so that these user-centric ideas that may have been generated through the use of digital tools can scale up and can be part of and can be part of wider applications by also other people, other markets, and other communities. Open data is key, and open solutions and open source solutions are key. And also it is important to understand the context, and this has been also mentioned previously by the previous speakers, the context in which the digital technologies are applied, and so that we can decide what and how to apply these digital technologies for the benefit of the rural communities. Now, I was very happy listening to the previous presentation on twin transition, because twin transition, I'm really grateful to Stefan and Katrin for putting this broader picture and the requirements. I would like to focus on a particular aspect of the twin transition. It's undoubtedly, we have all the figures that say that the use of digital technologies can reduce emissions by 20% by 2050 in the 3 highest emitting sectors, which are energy, materials, and mobility. So there is a fact that digital can be the solution to the climate crisis, and of course, it causes problem, but this is a huge discussion. But digital can be the solution to the climate crisis. What we need, however, and this is something, this is a big discussion in Europe right now, if we are ready for this transition, and what are the skills needed, and what about the human capital, as Stefan and Katrin mentioned previously. There is expected that there will be huge changes in the labor market because of this twin transition, and because technologies, products, materials, production methods change dramatically. And there is a huge impact on all types of jobs: brown jobs, green jobs, and white jobs. This is a classification that is used for defining the impact of each job, of each occupation on climate. And actually, according to this study, 85% of the jobs that will exist in 2030 haven't been invented yet, which makes clear that there is a big need, a huge need of finding the right skills and developing the right skills. So this was our intention when we started working on this white paper on twin skills. So to provide information for informed decision-making on how to better address the skills gaps and mismatches in this green and digital area. So we wanted to work on something that can support the science, technology, and innovation methodology to better understand the labor skill and trends within this frame of the twin transition. What we did is that we applied data analytics and text mining techniques, and we compared skills taxonomies and occupations with actual job positions so that we could extract trends in the job market, so that we can see what have been the changes since the implementation of the Paris Agreement, and also extract trends for the future. And we developed a new framework to assess the level of greenness and digitalization, or the combination of those both, in the EU labor market occupation, and to see, again, as I said, the positive shift in the demand for the green and digital skills in the last 5 years, and the projections until 2035. This is a snapshot of our overall approach. I will not present this in detail. We did work in relation to digital. We did work in relation to green. We used well-established multilingual classification frameworks, which we then combined using this data-driven methodology. And using this, here you can see the outcomes of this work. So according to this work that we did, the top 6 green and digital skills, here you can see the top 6 green skills, digital skills, and the skills that combine green and digital. And the same here, you can see the top 6 green occupations, digital occupations, and green and digital occupations. If you want to have more information about this, this is the white paper I mentioned, I talked about. This has been a collaboration between our team at Athena and PwC and Huawei. If you wish, you can download this report. The presentation will be available, so you can download this report through this QR code.
Sorry, Eleni.
Yes.
As we're behind schedule, would you be able to go
Yes,
directly
this
to
is
your
actually
conclusions?
this was actually my last slide. Sorry.
Perfect. Thank you.
Again, so these are wrapping up actually the multiple and complex challenges I presented in one of my first slides, require also a methodology capable for addressing them. As we are late, maybe I will not go into one by one. Again, you will have the presentation. This work, what I presented today, I started the other way around. So this is part of this Euphoria team, which is a big network of researchers and research organizations. The main three research organizations that support this Euphoria network is Athena Research Center, Athens University of Economic and Business, and DTU, Technical University of Denmark. And this, you see, we work on several aspects, and big part of our work is implemented. We are running actually the SDSN Global Climate Hub, and where we have several units addressing all these complex aspects, as I said, in an interdisciplinary or intradisciplinary way. Both ways, and combining this with data-driven solutions and applications and platforms. So this was my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eleni. So to finish this first part of the session, we will welcome Matteo Gerosa, who is the coordinator of Smart Era. And he will present some practical examples that are doing within the project on, which is a European project that seeks to empower rural communities by developing smart and innovative solutions. Matteo, the floor is yours.
Welcome, everyone. I'm very happy to be here and to have the opportunity to explain and to present the Smart Era project to this CODECS webinar. It has been really interesting for me. I'm not originally from this community, but still it's really interesting, and I think we have a very strong chance to create an impact with this project. So what is Smart Era? The goal of Smart Era, this is the objective of the project, is to reduce vulnerabilities and foster resilience in rural areas by upgrading and co-designing, co-developing and co-validating with local community a set of digital and non-digital solutions. So even here in the project objective, you see the multi-actor approach, in the sense we have people developing and designing and validating together with local communities. And the idea is we also have a method to analyze and tackle pressing socioeconomic and environmental challenges and promote a smart and community-led, again, community, transition pathway to empower rural people to act for change. Let me start to tell you that this is a new project. It started in January, so just a few months ago. So we don't have results yet, but we have. I can present you what are our ideas. So the topic was the smart solution for smart rural communities, empowering rural communities and smart village to innovate for societal change, like it was shown in one of the previous presentations. We have a team of 25 associated and affiliated partners from 10 European countries, you see here, and we have 6 pilot regions. The length is 4 years. But let's go to the more interesting part. So let's go to the idea that stems behind the project. And the idea that stems behind the project is that the observation that innovative solutions are derived by a complex project that needs the collaboration of a lot of different actors. They have different ingredients. They have organizational ingredients, social ingredients, digital ingredients. And these ingredients necessitate of a synergic action and interlink to work together. So the project idea is that if we take a set of innovative solutions, technological, non-technological, social, business models, and we put them together through, let's say, data screening, smart assessment, selecting of the solution, and then we adapt, integrate, and deploy, we can create what we call smart innovation package. That is a package that is more than the sum of different parts and address a problem in a rural area. But what does it mean? So let's say that we have, this is just an example, okay? Let's say that we have a rural area and we have a challenge. For example, we have a challenge that is depopulation. And we talk with the people in the rural area, and we identify that the main cause of depopulation is lack of public mobility option and lack of access to social services. And we define our goal. The goal is increase access to social service or increase mobility service, for example. And then we also need to monitor service access and delivery. And of course, we have some service constraint, like the geographical characteristic of the area, like, for example, this can be an alpine area with mountains, valleys, and so on. The demographic characteristics, maybe we are more elderly people or younger people, and so on. So why the approach? Because using just a digital solution does not work. You can say, okay, we lack mobility option. Okay, let's create a carpooling app, but that does not work. If carpooling app was the solution, then we would have Uber, because it would be economically sustainable to do that. Then, of course, it's not economically sustainable, so the carpooling app alone is not sufficient. But a carpooling app together with governance model for service co-deliveries, together with community engagement and co-design techniques, so social innovation to involve the community, a carpooling app together with incentive models. So we are talking about business model, incentive model, like tax discount and so on. So if we put all of this together, maybe we are able to create a smart innovation package that addresses the problem. And we have a four-step approach, and now we are at the beginning, let's say, of step one. It's a 4-year project, so we are actually now carrying on needs assessment and data screening for a rural area. We are mapping stakeholder expectation, selecting potential innovation, and then we will go to the second, third, and fourth step. So we will design the smart innovation packages, we develop technological component, we will adapt and integrate with local data, and I will talk about this later. We have an open call to ask for new solution for this smart innovation packages. Then we will deploy the smart innovation packages, we evaluate the result obtained, and then the fourth step is one of the most important, is replication. We want to be able to show that we are able to replicate what we are doing in 4 follower regions. And for this, we have another open call, a different open call, to find territory that are willing to follow us and use Martira in their territory to solve their needs. So, what are our region? As I said, we have 6 very different mortar regions with very different problems. the one in Italy is Valle di Sole, is a mountain region with the problem of improving social care and services. We have an island in Tramuntana Soler in Mallorca that it's about tourism and agri-food. We have a Nordic peri-urban, very sparsely populated area, north of Ostrobothnia in Finland, and the goal is to promote digital entrepreneurship. We have a remote rural area in Bosnia and Herzegovina with the goal to valorize agri-food tourism, a cross-border area between Slovenia, Italy, and Croatia to foster sustainable mobility, and a remote rural area in the Taki Plateau in Bulgaria with the goal to favor participation in decision-making and access to social and cultural services. We talked about multi-actor approach. So how SmartTIRA will implement this multi-actor approach? Well, we have 3 elements in our project, these 3 main elements of this multi-actor approach. The first is the methodology that we call community-centered development, which put communities living and collaborating within villages and other rural settlements at the center of the development process as beneficiary and drivers, based on the 3 pillars, that is community engagement, the co-creation and co-design to validate the solution, and the multidisciplinary approach to research and development to ensure holistic development of the solution. The second point is to use motivational gamification mechanism to engage, motivate people, give them a sense of purpose and belongings, thanks to feedback and rewarding their contribution to a combination of individual and community level game concepts and elements. This approach has been used in the past very successfully in behavioral change for implementing more sustainable and greener mobility in small cities. We'll see if we can apply this in rural area. Then we have the third is more on an organizational pillar, that is that the pilots are based on the collaboration of 2 entities that closely work with each other. A pilot orchestrator, that is a technical partner responsible for the developing of the Smart Innovation Package, and a community activator, that is a local public administration, like a small municipality or an NGO, that has strong ties with the local communities and has a demonstrated experience in engaging these communities in innovative projects and initiatives. So with the collaboration of these 2 entities, we think that we are able to engage all the necessary actors of the territory. The example is Valle di Sole. This is our largest pilot area, probably by far, because we have 13 municipalities, more than 40 villages, and 50,000 people. And this area is facing the population of lack of service. So a lot of people, but in a very sparse area and in a very, not segregated, but very sparse communities, very small villages high in the mountains, maybe 2 hours from the nearest hospital, for example. So we will build upon existing good practices targeted young people and the elderly, like mobility on demand or aggregation point for young people. We'll connect current initiative with innovative solution. Our community activator is the province of Trento, and that has a demonstrated experience of involving these communities. In the day after tomorrow, for example, we have a meeting with the 13 majors of these 13 small municipalities. As I said, we will use gamification mechanism to ensure engagement and ensuring wider involvement through open calls. What are these 2 open calls? 2 types. One is pilot add-ons with the goal of developing innovative solution to be integrated in the Smart Innovation Package for pilot experiments. And the goal is to target 6-12 technology providers with a budget of maximum 60,000 each. And the second type of call, it will be late in summer 2026, but the goal is replication and uptake in smart terra methods and solutions in other rural areas. And for this, we have a representative of the 4 European macro-regional strategy, like USALP, Baltic, Adrian, Danube region, to find 4 rural consortia following the idea of community activator and technology provider with a budget of 90K. And that's it. I hope I wasn't too long. Thank you. Again, I'm here for any questions.
Thank you, Matteo, and thank you to all speakers. There was a very rich and complex, there was a very diverse set of views with the very different angles, and I think you all point out to the issue about the interrelations, the system approach, and therefore we thought it was good not to rush you. And we had foreseen some discussion now, but given that there's been a significant delay, I will be suggesting to go straight for the coffee. I'm sure many of us would like to have a quick break. And so some of the perhaps questions you had, I've been told, I believe that our speakers will actually stay in the breakout sessions. You have been assigned to a session, and perhaps we can actually follow the debate and the question you might have there, as well as in the last part of the meeting. Please don't switch off as we go for a coffee for 10 minutes. We will be back at 11:40. And we'll go for them for have 2 breakout sessions for half an hour. You will have been assigned already, depending on your background and preference, to either of the sessions. So you're automatically going to be assigned to that during the break time and the coffee break. So please don't disconnect yourself, because otherwise the whole system doesn't work and you'll be out of the meeting. So please enjoy your coffee, and we'll be back in barely 10 minutes from now, where you will go straight for the 2 breakout sessions, which, as I say, you are being automatically assigned, and you will be assigned while you are having your coffee in a moment. So we'll see you that in 10 minutes. Okay, thank you. On multi-actor platform, multi-actor approach by Emil Skills, I'm partner of the project, well known, and also ACIS, a breakout session on ACIS that will be led by Maria Alonso Rodan from University of Córdoba, also well known to many of us. So I think we're going to be directed straight to the breakout sessions.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay, I think we are back in the main room, all of us.
Yes.
Okay, we're fine. Well, I thank for those who could stay and contribute. I had to do a bit shorter than expected because of course, the time we devoted to the initial presentations. I want to particularly thank Emil Skills from the Baltic Study Center, who ran the session on multi-actor approach for transformative digital solutions, and then also to Maria Alonso Rodan from University of Córdoba, who did a great job in facilitating and getting through a lot of the questions and issues of ACIS and the role of digitalization to foster the expansion of ACIS. So I don't know if maybe starting by the agenda, Emil, you could like to do a bit of a feedback of the main findings. We have to reassure, this is just a summary. There will be additional notes that have been taken by myself and by Merveille that will be going into the event report. So this is just an overview for making aware the others about what we discussed. So maybe, Emil, you would like to take the floor.
Yes, hi. My colleague might actually take notes. So
oh, yes.
Yeah. So
I know, sorry. Forgot to say, yes, I saw him. My apologies. Just go ahead. Yes, please.
Yeah. So we discussed in our group the multi-actor approach to the projects, and we managed to discuss 3 of the planned topics or questions. So the first one was, to what extent can the multi-actor projects, such as living labs and demonstration farms, develop transformative digital solutions that meet the needs of farming and rural communities? And it was mentioned that there are crucial aspects in order to be able to develop these transformative digital solutions. And these aspects are such as ownership of the problem as well as ownership of the solution. And it was mentioned that this problem can be firstly defined by involving the local community and other stakeholders, and afterwards this digital solution can be developed. But there can be also the approach vice versa if there are different stakeholders involved, such as ones from the digital field, and they can start with the development of the technology and just afterwards set this technology in the local context. And it was also mentioned that it's very crucial that there are persons who can facilitate the process of problem definition, like who can involve this local community and help them to define these problems. And it was also mentioned that temporality of projects and also this multi-actor approach is time-consuming, so it has also to be taken into account. The other question we discussed was key advantages and challenges of involving multiple actors in the process of digitalizing agriculture and rural areas. And it was mentioned that it's important to underline the continuity of groups around specific themes or problems, the groups like the stakeholder groups. And it was also mentioned that we have to have realistic expectations what the partners of the specific project can do in the field of digitalization, including also available resources to them. And there was mentioned an example of countryside and farmers in countryside, and there are situations that they don't have a lot of resources available for digital transformation. And the third question we discussed was about communication and how to improve communication among different stakeholder groups in this multi-actor approach. And then there was a few tips given how to do it, like bring to the same table different stakeholders on a regular basis. And it was also mentioned that again the figure of facilitator is a key issue, and perception of challenges that perception of different kind of challenges can change over time, and this also should be taken into account. So that's shortly from our side.
Thank you. And now maybe we can have Maria, our other facilitator, for her contribution. Thank you very much for facilitating this.
Sure, thanks. So I'm going to just show you our main conclusions. I'm not going to go in detail into each question, but we understand that digital technologies can play a role in supporting effective AKIS systems, and we have shared the definition of effective AKIS that Francesco also introduced earlier. However, it's got like a role, but it doesn't necessarily need to have a key role, because not all farming systems and not all farmers can actually benefit or join this digital transition to then be incorporated in the AKIS. But we understand that AKIS, of course, has got like a key role in this digital and sustainable transition, the twin transition, and there are different policy frameworks that can support this. One is this policy frameworks that support increase in digital skills among farmers, but also advisors and supporting stakeholders, as well as entrepreneurial skills. But also in the role of technology production, we need to incorporate these bottom-up approaches. We need to make sure that we are co-developing technologies that are easy to use, that can easily incorporated by farmers, as well as favoring open source and open software kind of approaches in technology development. Then there's the issue of data, and we've got like policy regulations for that. It's still too early to see what is the impact on the AQs. However, these households have to be combined. It cannot be like an effort only from the digitalization side or the skills. So it has to be a combined effort. Then there are two issues here, because we've got like, whether do we want very strict EU regulations, or do we allow member states to actually incorporate or transpose these regulations the way they can? We had this discussion around the cap payment systems and how they are really hard for farmers to maybe join the system. And I think those are the main things. It's like really difficult to speak broadly given the diversity of farming systems, farmers' capacities and characteristics across Europe, as well as the financial return and the many aspects that may farmers join the digitalization transition earlier or later. I think this maybe it. Serafin, if you've got any.
No, it's absolutely spot on. I mean, I took proficient notes, but actually you covered that pretty much it. Thank you both. I appreciate it's a bit of a challenge to try to cover this in a small session, but anyway, this is, remember, just the first of a number of meetings. This is just an appetizer for actually encouraging those who are already with us and others to join us and deep delve in specific sessions on and well deep dive in some of the specific topics we raised in these two sessions. So rest assured about that. I think with that in mind, and as I say, a lot of the other things we cover in the breakout session or specific comments will also be added to the report, the event report you will have like in a few weeks. But now I think we have like a very dense morning. It was on purpose to be dense, to actually try to cover a variety of things, to try to understand the complexities in the interrelations. So it was on purpose. So thank you for bearing with us for this long. And I think now, I think we have to give the floor to, as it is right and proper, to Professor Brunori to provide a final reflection on this first session and perhaps an idea of what is in storage in the project from the next steps. So Professor Brunori, Gianluca, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. This just to thank all the participants and especially the speakers that gave a very good insights and let's say a lot of food for thought for our next work. I would say that one issue that emerges from also breakout sessions is the let's say apparent contradiction between directionality of innovation and a multi-actor approach, so a democratic approach to it, because in some cases we can say also that multi-actor approach can be very conservative, and then we want to let's say to steer the transition. So this is a kind of contradiction. Maybe it's an apparent contradiction because we have to consider that transition needs the support of actors, but maybe it will be important to identify the lead actors and the key issues that really address the need of the people. But this is just, let's say, a first reflection coming out of this morning, and I really hope that in the next meetings we will be able to also not only to raise problems but also to provide some avenues for solutions. So thank you very much for this.
Okay. Thank you very much, Gianluca. So just before wrapping up today's session, I once again want to thank all the speakers for sharing your expertise and your insight with us today. And I also want to thank all the participants for joining us and for actively engaging in the discussions that we had, especially in the breakout rooms. So before logging off, I just want to remind everyone that this event, so the CODECS webinars, are organized within the framework of CODECS Knowledge Accelerator. So it's a network that is dedicated to promoting knowledge co-creation and enabling stakeholders collaboration, which is exactly like we had the chance to do today, and that maybe we'll have the opportunity to do in a longer form during the next events and activities that we will organize. So I encourage all of you to join the CODECS community, and you can do so by checking in the chat. My colleague Maite included the link at the beginning of the session. And so when you join, you gain access to our LinkedIn group, where we share some information on the topic, and you also can discuss with other professionals who are active in the field. And you also get updated on all the events and all the activities that we will organize in the future. So as Seraphine already mentioned, you can also stay tuned for the next webinar reports that will come out really soon, where we will share all the highlights from today's webinar, especially from what was discussed in the different breakout rooms. So that is it. And then we also invite you to subscribe to the newsletter, to also stay tuned on all the activities that CODECS is doing and how the project is evolving. So once again, thank you all and for your participation and contributions, and have a nice afternoon.